U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Defense Secretary Leon Panetta are set to step down from their jobs as the Obama administration prepares for its next four-year term. But do these new appointments to these positions signal perhaps new opportunities in foreign policy? That's what we're going to be looking at this week on Access Point. We're very pleased to be joined by our guests here at table and by Skype, and encouraging you to join as well on our Facebook page. We already have a lot of comments on our Facebook page. We're really asking the question, what do you want to see different in terms of U.S.-Pakistan relations in the next 4 years? Let's meet our guests for this hour. It's a real pleasure to welcome to the desk here Ambassador Riaz Mohammed Khan. Ambassador Khan has a long and distinguished career in diplomacy, ultimately rising to Pakistan's foreign secretary under President Pervez Musharraf. He's most currently Pakistan scholar at the Wilson Center. We're also joined at the table here by Marvin Weinbaum. Marvin Weinbaum is a scholar in residence at the Middle East Institute here in Washington, D.C. He's the former director of the program in South Asian and Middle Eastern Studies at the University of Illinois. Quite a long resume. He's also the author of several books, including his latest, Pakistan and Afghanistan. And joining us via Skype, we're pleased to welcome James Farwell. Mr. Farwell is a senior researcher at the Center for Global Security Studies. That's at the University of Toronto. But he's also a defense consultant for the Pentagon, emphasizes that his views are his own and not those of either the University or the Defense Department. He's the author of several books, including The Pakistan Cauldron, and most recently, just this week, published Persuasion and Power, published by Georgetown Press. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. My first question to you, Ambassador Khan, what is the U.S. getting right when it comes to foreign and military policy with Pakistan?
Well, there has been a lot of which has gone wrong in 2011. But now I think the temperatures have cooled down, there's a thaw, and things are normalizing. So that's the good, positive development.
So there's a thaw, you say, a thaw and perhaps that tension that existed. So that's something that's going right. Other aspects that you might note that sort of signal perhaps a good trend line?
Good trend line is that there is a lot of interaction, which has been there earlier also, but I think there is a better understanding of the concerns of Pakistan, and that should continue.
Professor Weinbaum, your thoughts now as to what has not gone right with U.S.-Pakistan relations over the last 4 years, and perhaps looking forward to what may be changed in the coming four?
Well, I think what had not gone right for some time was the fact that we were expecting too much from this strategic partnership that we claim to have with Pakistan. What we learned in a very definite fashion, especially during 2011, was that our interests were not necessarily overlapping, and indeed in some areas we were diametrically opposed. So I think what's going right from that is that out of this period of great difficulty in the relationship, we, it strikes me, have come out of it with a better sense of where we stand. We understand one another a little better. There are fewer illusions about what that partnership means, and ultimately I believe we're making progress because we've recognized a more limited number of areas where we have a common interest and where we've got to work together.
Professor Farwell, would you say then that perhaps we have a more clear-eyed relationship with Pakistan?
Yes, we do. I think what happened in the last couple of years is that there was not a realistic sense of expectations that each of the countries had to each other. What I think we see developing now is a more realistic appreciation of mutual ground on strategic interests. And it is strategic interests and their commonality that provides the basis for a closer, more productive relationship. And I think that falls into two areas. One of them is, and you'll see this, I think, with the pending appointments that the president is about to make, a recognition that ultimately the strength of Pakistan and its stability lies in finding ways to bolster its economic stability, its economic prosperity, number one. And number two, there is a much more realistic appreciation between the two countries of what it takes in order to stabilize the situation next door in Afghanistan so that the consequences of what happened there don't flow into Pakistan.
Our guests here in Washington, D.C., we're pleased to welcome Ambassador Khan and Marvin Weinbaum joining us by Skype, James Farwell, and we're taking a look at U.S.-Pakistan relations over the next 4 years, particularly as the United States gets ready to name a new Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense. We're also asking your views as well. Gentlemen, this should be no surprise. We've been getting a lot of response in terms of what people feel they want to see different in terms of U.S.-Pakistan relationship. It's probably no surprise at all that the #1 topic of many of these responses is drones. Ambassador Khan?
Yes, drones is something which continues to rankle with the Pakistanis, and by and large there is widespread opposition to drones. Basically they are against our sovereignty. One. Secondly, when there was this understanding about use of drones, it was basically for intelligence gathering. It was never meant to be fitted with weapons and to be used as weapons.
Sort of the non-strike drones, those just basically.
And there were specific areas where these drones were supposed to operate. But from 2008, the number of strikes have been exponentially high. There were more than 100 every year since then. This year it has been much less. So that certainly has drawn a very strong reaction from the public and then also from the government.
As one member of the public, Riaz Saeed Ullah writes on our Facebook page, stopping drone attacks will be a great change during Mr. Obama's second term. Professor Weinbaum, how much reality do you think might there be? Is the Obama administration showing any signs, whoever the next secretaries of state and defense are, of slowing those drone attacks?
It already has. There has been an adjustment in American policy, understanding the sensitivities. At the same time, the president has made it pretty clear, and I think that the new Secretary of State is not going to change that at all, and that is that we reserve the right, and particularly when it's with regard to al-Qaeda, to strike at targets, especially now the question is, should we limit those to just high-value targets, or what they call signature, where you just see, for example, a gathering of bad guys, and where there's more likely to be collateral damage.
Do you think that this fall off in drone attacks had anything to do, gentlemen, whoever may have thoughts on this, with the 2011 attack in Pakistan that ultimately killed Osama bin Laden?
Well, I think it comes out of a general falling of relations during 11 and an effort now to rebuild those relations. And I think part of that understanding is that we would be more circumscribed in our use of it. But the U.S., as long as we still have troops in Afghanistan, the U.S. is going to keep that as a weapon. And let me just add one more thing. The Pakistan military values that as well. Yes, publicly, their position has to be what it is, but we have also managed to degrade the Pakistani Taliban in the process. And so when it comes to those targets, the Pakistan military is not the least bit unhappy.
What we have been saying is that there ought to be coordination.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is important.
Yes. Coordination
and
between
yes. Your side and our side, the militaries. And if there is a high-value target on which the two sides agree, then certainly there should be some action taken. But what we have seen in the last 4 years, not this year as much, but earlier, is that it was almost indiscriminate. And it was not very many high-value targets which basically were taken out, but the number of civilian casualties have been in hundreds. And that, of course, led to a very strong public reaction.
You're both echoing comments, I think thoughts left by Ahmed Shabir, who says the U.S.-Pakistani relationship really needs to be symbiotic and not one-sided. I'm gathering that there has been some sense in Pakistan that perhaps it has been a little one-sided. Professor Farwell, I was first going to take a look at who's going to replace Secretary Hillary Clinton. She has been a long-serving member she's from day one of the Obama administration. But I think the discussion now really is kind of taking a look at the military aspect. So if we can, let's turn to the Defense Secretary. Leon Panetta is stepping down after 2 years. Is it any accident, do you think, that this is happening just about the same time that the United States is drawing down troops in Afghanistan?
Well, I think first, Secretary Panetta had said from the outset that he was going to be leaving this position at the advent of a second term. It's a position that, as you know, is very draining on somebody. The Secretary's done a fine job, but people are only human. They can only hold that job for so long. In Senator Hagel, if he is nominated, and his nomination has not been announced yet, the president would be choosing somebody that holds a worldview that's very similar to him. I've had the pleasure of knowing Senator Hagel since 1993 when we first met and became friends and know him reasonably well. And if he became secretary, what we would be having is first a secretary that has an enormous amount of personal integrity. He's very independent-minded. As a senator, did not hesitate to challenge the leadership of his own political party when he thought that it was wrong. He's very oriented towards the notion of engagement with Pakistan. He understands the economic challenges that Pakistan faces. To emphasize, though, what Marvin Weinbaum said, and I think he's really quite right about that, there just is somewhat of a difference in view between Pakistan and the United States about what has to be done to deal with al-Qaeda. This country is going to deal with al-Qaeda targets when we find them. I think that there is a very great effort made to try and minimize civilian casualties. At the same time, the ambassador is quite right in stating that the drone attacks have been a flashpoint that have accelerated tensions between the two countries. One of the things I thought interesting in the last week is that Pakistan is now publicizing the development and manufacture of its own drones. So that if drones are going to be used, the Pakistani military would like to make sure that they are, as it were, Pakistani drones and not American drones. And I think that probably holds out some strategic benefits for both sides. I think that with Secretary Hagel, you'll see a lot of progress. One of the other things I think that also helps is that Senator Hagel and Senator Kerry have a very good relationship. They too share somewhat of a similar worldview. And on balance, from the perspective of this administration with its policies, I think that they would have a Secretary of State and a Secretary of Defense who articulate the policies that this president embraces.
Of course, nobody's been officially named yet, we should point out, although as you're referencing some of the names in top contention, it seems that the good money is on President Obama nominating Senator John Kerry to replace Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, and Senator Chuck Hagel, former Senator Chuck Hagel, Republican of Nebraska, to replace Leon Panetta as Defense Secretary.
But that Hagel nomination, I think, is less certain. I think there is some pushback domestically here. That doesn't mean that he won't go ahead with it, but I don't think we should take for granted that Hagel, at this point, will be the Secretary of Defense.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. Just a note here, there's some discussion. Apparently, a publication, let's see here, I believe it's some of the people who've also been have their names put in are Michelle Flournoy and Ash Carter, who are both currently serving under Secretary Panetta. Well,
Ms. Flournoy has stepped out, but she was until recently, yes.
Do they represent, do you think, gentlemen, perhaps a different voice? Why would somebody be sort of pushing these nominees forward? Might they have a different policy perspective, more conservative, more liberal?
No. This is one team. These people have gotten along very well. I've heard Mr. Carter recently. This is really speaking for the fact that whoever follows, I believe, in either state or defense, we will see a continuity. And above all, I think we have to recognize they'll be carrying out the wishes of the president.
I'm going to cast this all to you, and first to you, Ambassador Khan. How much room do you think that there is potentially, and appetite, I guess, for possible change or revisions to U.S. policy when it comes to the region, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran? I know that's a very complicated neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, Iran, and I hope that there is no new conflict in the area. We don't have any appetite for any new conflict. Pakistan has suffered on account of the Afghan conflict, and almost one generation has been lost in the process. And we are still trying to find our way out of it. Mm-hmm. So one hopes that there is no other conflict in this region. On Afghanistan, let me say one thing and I agree with Mr. Weinbaum, that there will be continuity of the policy. Mm. But in this continuity, what is important is that there should be better understanding of each other. And now I think we have reached, after 4 years or so, a stage where there are signs of better, at least interaction between the two sides, and better sensitivity to the concerns of each side. Like, for example, on Al-Qaeda, mm-hmm. Pakistan was on the same page as United States. We coordinated. We, in fact, were responsible for picking up the largest number of Al-Qaeda operatives, who many of them are in Guantanamo Bay. But on Taliban, there was a disconnect. And it was right from the beginning. We always said that they are part of the Afghan political landscape, and right. They should be involved. And we have been, in a way, our position has been validated, because now you talk about reconciliation.
And I know that I cast this question to all of you, but it's interesting that you say that, Ambassador Khan. I was just reading Seth Jones' book, In the Graveyard of Empires, and in it, it's a tremendous book, lots of information, but in it, he seems to be making the case that Pakistani officials, particularly President Pervez Musharraf, felt perhaps a little let down by the United States after Pakistan had agreed to contribute and joined so closely after the 2011 attacks, excuse me, the 2001 September 11 attacks, that the United States sort of turned its back on Pakistan. Is there a sense of that, or was there a sense in the administration?
Well, there was this sense that Pakistan is not being treated as an ally, and there was this thing being said that Pakistan and United States are allies in this war against terror. Now, of course, the whole jargon has changed. On the question of terrorism and extremism, as I said, that Pakistan was on the same page. There were convergence of interests. And in that sense, we were allies. But there was this sense later on which developed in Pakistan, the criticism which was coming, especially in the media, that Pakistan was not being treated as an ally, but as a hired gun. And that certainly was resented, both in the official circles and in public.
Professor Weinbaum.
Well, the Pakistan military took the millions that we were giving them with great glee. I think that Pervez Musharraf is partly rewriting history. We did, obviously, we did with our own interests in mind as well, but Pakistan did gain enormously economically and in terms of its security, because it had the United States as partners after 9/11. Were they disappointed that they didn't get everything that they wanted? Of course.
Well, I suppose everybody is at some level. Professor Farwell, you're nodding your head.
Yes, I think what Marvin says is right. I think one of the things that's important to remember as you think back on the years of President Bush is that W and President Musharraf formed actually quite a close personal bond. And as the ambassador correctly pointed out, there is a distinction that I think that the media often overlooks. What Musharraf signed on to doing was fighting al-Qaeda, not fighting the Taliban inside Pakistan. Later on, there became, I think, some miscommunication between the two countries about what the nature of those commitments were or were not. Certainly within this country, there's a lot of push to deal with the Haqqani network, to go into North Waziristan. From a Pakistani point of view, there are some countervailing interests that come into play. which is one of the reasons why, number one, I think that having a Secretary of State and a Secretary of Defense who believe in very, very close engagement, that have credibility with the Pakistani military and civilian leadership is a very important thing. And I think that the other thing to bear in mind is that we have to not allow these differences over, say, dealing with the Haqqani network to get in the way of the broader strategic common ground of bringing stability into Afghanistan. And as long as these two things are bundled together, it will be more difficult. There are just going to be some things we agree on, there will be some things that we don't agree on. Pakistanis are very proud, and I think that they have probably been somewhat too quick to take offense at American actions. The fact is both countries act in their own interests. That's what's been done.
James Farwell, Ambassador Riaz Khan, and Marvin Weinbaum are guests as we continue looking at the transition to the second Obama administration, new Secretary of State, new Secretary of Defense, and what this may say or may not about possible changes in U.S. policy toward Pakistan and its neighbors. A number of comments have again been coming on to the Facebook page. This from Moise Karam. We're really not wanting any change in Pakistan relations, Moise writes, by the Obama administration. We're simply humbly requesting that he let our country be on its own. Gentlemen, I'm curious your thoughts. We are preparing for a drawdown of troops in Pakistan, or excuse me, in Afghanistan. How ready do you think that country is for that significant drawdown?
Well, does Pakistan really want to be on its own? I think that's the question that the listeners raising here.
And he's not the only one, I should say. There's several.
Hardly. I understand where that sentiment is coming from. But the fact is that Pakistan is going to be a dependent country. Pakistan's defense needs, its economic problems at the moment require that it work together with other nations to satisfy those needs. It's not so simple that if the international community walks away from Pakistan, that somehow Pakistan is going to be deprived. Let me just say that the real danger here is in Pakistan for Pakistan to take too many of its problems and to say, we really aren't responsible for what's happening. Others are doing this to us. Others are responsible for our extremism, for our economic doldrums. And so that kind of denial, I think, that works against really addressing the problems that they do have, which have to be worked out, I suspect, largely by Pakistanis themselves.
Ambassador Khan, how serious are those considerations and those worries?
I think, first of all, these perceptions that others are responsible. The thing is that the sober view in Pakistan is that, yes, there are many things which have happened and we are responsible for that and we have to rectify them. But there are also other factors, outside factors, which are contributing to the turmoil and problems in the region. For example, there is a debate on the U.S. presence. And there is an opinion in Pakistan that the presence itself is strengthening the argument of those people who are fighting or opposition to the Afghan government, that they are fighting foreigners. So as long as the U.S. presence is there, therefore this argument will be sustained and this turmoil will continue. So these things cannot be overlooked. But what is it in terms of U.S.-Pakistan relationship? I have also written a book, Afghanistan and Pakistan, the conflict, extremism, and resistance to modernity. In that, I have argued that basically Pakistan desires and Pakistanis desire a positive relationship with the United States, which need not necessarily be an aid relationship. Because in my view, as I analyze the aid assistance programs, they have distorted the relationship rather than helped the relationship in many ways.
Professor Farwell, it's a curious question. Do you think, from your research and your work, that Pakistanis genuinely want to see the U.S. troops pull out of Afghanistan? I mean, is that something that they really want, or is that bring worries of destabilization and other concerns with it?
It's a great question. One of the things to remember about politics is that people stand on both sides of the same issue. Yes, on the one hand, a lot of Pakistanis blame the United States for the violence at home. They don't take any responsibility for themselves, and they put insufficient blame on the Taliban. They're much more likely to blame the United States, India, or Israel. At the same time, the last thing that Pakistan can afford to have happen is for the United States drawdown to be complete and for Afghanistan to be left in chaos. It strikes me there are three things that the Pakistanis need to focus on. First, the need to work in partnership as an equal partner with the United States in enabling, and I use the word enabling because they can't make something happen on their own, but in enabling some kind of accord. Marvin Weinbaum and I have written about that, and I stand fully on our views on that, which is that there needs to be an all-party accord. We can play an enabling process, but we don't have the power unilaterally to make it happen. And that's number one. Number two, a stability in this area needs to be done within a regional framework. There are other countries whose interests come into play and who can have a very positive influence in stabilizing Pakistan economically. And third, and this must be said, and I don't think that there is enough discussion about that, at some point, the elected civilian government in Pakistan and the military are going to have to reach some kind of balance in which the elected civilian government itself is able to assert itself as a government. Part of the reason that the Pakistanis have the problems that they do with the blame game, if you want to use that term, is that you don't have a civilian government that feels strong enough to assert itself and to take responsibility in not only calling the Taliban a violent extremists for what it is, but also being able to provide the kind of good governance that would ultimately make a difference. A country in which the military is playing too much of a role, which is what happens behind the scenes in Pakistan, is a scenario that is not likely to produce the kind of future that a country that is talented and has the energy and the bright prospects that Pakistan has is capable of fulfilling. And I think that would be very sad if that takes place. It can be done. It just takes will.
For each of you in turn, and we'll begin with you, Professor Farwell, if we can, I'm very curious what each of your counsel would be to perhaps secretaries, if they are nominated and agreed on by the Senate, Hagel in defense, potentially, and Kerry for state. What would your counsel be? First to you, Professor Farwell. What would you say that they should do to take significant steps to really move that ball forward down the line that you're talking about so that relations between the United States and Pakistan are genuinely improved and genuinely constructed and built up?
Three things. First, I would make clear both in deeds and in words and in the symbols of the types of actions that I take that we view Pakistan as a friend and above all an equal partner. It is the communication of respect for a partner that I think becomes really important in being able to have a stronger positive relationship. Second.
If I may, I'm so sorry, just to get everybody a voice, if we can just maybe go with one from you and Ambassador Khan, the first thing that you would say, your best counsel to Secretaries Hagel and Kerry.
My first counsel would be that there must be continuation of this candid dialogue between the two sides. Here, the basis of this partnership is that on the question of stabilization in the region, particularly of Afghanistan, and in terms of fighting extremism and terrorism, Pakistan and United States are on the same page. But there may be differences of approaches, concerns, and there ought to be sensitivity to those concerns and approaches.
With just a minute remaining?
Yeah, I would say don't go running to Pakistan every time there's any kind of altercation in the relationship. Often when we arrive there, we do things that are counterproductive. And at the same time, also think of the Pakistani people and not just interlocuting with the elites there as well. You're talking to a larger audience.
I want to thank you all very much for joining for a great conversation today. Professor Marvin Weinbaum, Ambassador Riz Khan, and Professor James Farwell. Thank you all for joining us today. And thank you all for joining us today on Access Point. I'm Doug Bernard, just sitting in for Aisha Tanzim, who will be back very soon. And of course, we'll be back with you again next week. We'll see you then.